First piece of business is the approval of the minutes from the last two meetings. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to review it. Does anybody have any comments or changes from the last two meetings? Everybody did a great job on these, and, page after page. So anyway, all right.
I just
Yeah.
have one typo, and Kathy, you might have corrected it. It's on last meeting's minutes,
The May minutes.
page 4, assess. It's third paragraph down. Needs another S.
Okay, with that change, is everybody okay with approving the minutes for the last two meetings?
Yeah.
Okay, good, done. All right, why don't we say who we are and go for roll call for the meeting? Okay, Gail, you want to start?
Gail Sight,
Tish Gallagher.
Mike Marinelli.
Real.
Rick Gunnell. Tim Wood.
And also Suzanne Souter from the council is here, and also Fred Gallagher from the trustees is also here. And there's a reason he's here. It's, but first I should say that David Athy let me know this afternoon that he's not going to be able to be here because he's not feeling well. So, but I got an email from Tommy Wilson a couple of days ago saying that he was going to resign. He just didn't have the time to devote to the task force that he wished. So, because he was the representative of the trustees, Fred Gallagher was kind enough to volunteer to be part of the task force. He is Tish's husband, so I don't think anybody would have any problem with that. But anyway, so thank you very much, Fred. Let's see what else. Okay. Okay, so we had a discussion last meeting about public comments, and a couple of people were upset that we didn't have comments at the beginning of the meeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to have comments about sea level flooding issues at the beginning, and then we will have comments about our discussion at the end. So if anybody would like to comment right now that has something that is on their minds that they would like to talk about, if they just tell me, they have to, you tell me your name and your address and any comment you have right now.
On agenda items?
No, just on any issues that you see or you have an opinion about sea level rise or flooding issues.
Okay.
Yeah,
Give
just,
us
so
some
just say your
issue.
name and your address.
Phil Gross.
Oh, it's 3 minutes, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I forgot about that part.
Phil Gross, 1301 13th Street. I guess the only question I have for this part really is, does anybody have an idea of how many residential homes, units are slated in the city along Route 9 corridor or Lukens Drive?
Are you talking about the new River Bend, or is it River
Oh,
Bend?
no,
River Edge?
because that's part. I guess where I'm going with it is, I would like the task force or the group to consider over the next couple months coming up with a proposal to city council to bring about a 1-year moratorium on construction of anything in any of the flood zones or Route 9, because I know for a fact that an evacuation route on Route 9 for any more vehicles is a major hazard waiting to happen. I mean, it's not even questionable whether it's 5 years, 10 years. At its present level, it's risky. So that's something that I'd like, the task force to consider putting together.
Okay, part of our brief is that we look at things in the code that might be changing, so I suppose we can at some point consider that.
Well, it's within your parameters, because if it's potentially area that could be flooded or is flooding, then it's certainly within your range of saying, well, until we make our recommendations and collect all our stuff over the next year, get input, do, looking into things. Could you just hold up on the building, let us come back to you, let WMAPCO's road changes and drainage corrections and suggestions be put into place? And then, if we feel or council feels that building can progress, as long as it's safely, because there's liability. There's major liability.
Okay, Phil, did you give your full name and your address at the beginning of that? I don't remember if he did. He did, okay, good.
Okay,
Right.
sorry.
That's all right, it's all right.
I'm used to just writing it in, so.
Okay, does anybody else have any comment right now?
I know that Sandra Taylor, 29 Bloomington Square. And I know that I'm the only minority here. And my concern is getting information out of the other people. As this gentleman was saying, I don't know if that's the area you're talking about on Route 9, the city, what we're considered the city part
Mhm.
of Old Newcastle, because I'm sure there's other concerns. I found out through P. Toner about this, and then he in turn directed me to Suzanne. And that's who I've been talking about. I missed the last meeting because I didn't look at the weekly correctly, so I didn't see the date. And I think Suzanne was out on vacation away one time, and I was trying to find it. But that's my concern. I think that there are others that would be concerned about that because we are a part of.
So what would you suggest then? That we do, what can we do beyond, giving notice of our meetings?
Well, I don't know how many people get the newsletter now. I just started getting a newsletter because of Pete Toner. He's the one that told me about it. I never knew anything about a newsletter. So I've been getting them regularly and I read them from back to front so that I can be know what's going on in the area. So that's how I became interested in what's going on because I think it would concern us as well, that area.
Right. Maybe you could give me your, go ahead.
What newsletter is the crier?
Pardon?
The town crier, is that what?
Yes,
Right.
that's what,
Yeah.
that's the, and I never knew anything about one until, like I said, I've been in close contact with Pete Toner about a number of things, especially the Battery Park and the cleanup of there, because I walked through there. And that's when I found, so he said, I'll make sure you get one. So that's how I get one on a weekly basis.
Well, I don't know beyond what we've done, except if you want to give me your email address after the meeting, then I can send you any information that you might think that people would know. Maybe you could be a little, our own town crier work in your neighborhood.
Okay.
All right?
The
Okay.
meetings are monthly,
Pardon?
once a month.
Yeah, I know this, I know that, and I will let them, others know.
Right. Well, also at the last meeting, we talked about the fact that, Mike, you probably read the minutes. We talked about the fact that we would like to have, end up with protecting the city up until the 2050 level, which would be 10.5. Although Tim was a little less sure about that. But anyway, 10.5 feet above the, I guess it would be sea level at that point, where that's the 100-year event, that we would be protecting ourselves from. So the question then was, how do we get funding for something like that? And the engineering and, the whole thing has to be laid out first before we can just say we're going to do it, or it's too expensive, or it doesn't look good, or whatever. We need some more information. So the question was, where can we get funding for those kinds of reports and or projects if we get to that point, so everybody had a sort of assignment of certain sources to look at to see whether or not there was funding that could be gotten. So we're not going to go through everyone, but maybe everybody could start with Gail. If you found something that you think is,
Do you want to continue with public comment? before
oh,
we
is there
move
more,
into
more
that?
public comments? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize.
No worries. My name's Karen. I know I'm at 621 Cherry Street.
61 what?
621 Cherry Street.
Okay,
And just to real quickly answer to that, there is a possibility that someone could do the candidate say, sea level rise meeting, this week at this time, and that way, we put it on Route 9 or wherever, and people can see it. I've seen other meetings announced that way. It just occurred to me.
Do you think there are a lot of people like yourselves that are very interested in this that would come to the meeting?
I think so.
I think so, if they are aware of, the potential that, as you're stating, could happen down the road. I think you're, but if we're not aware, or we don't know, or we don't get this information, then you couldn't say who would or wouldn't be,
Yeah.
interested in that time. And that's good, because my thing is, and please don't take this wrongly, anyone in here. When it comes time for elections or whatever, everyone comes to our doors, put their leaflets or whatever on our doors to come out and vote. Now, I'm one of the regular voters, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure there's others. But I'm just saying, if that can be done, then there are other things that can be done to
Yeah.
let us be aware.
Well, I personally am thrilled you're here because,
Well,
because
thank you.
the Buttonwood Dam is part of
Right.
this whole thing, and we need people from the
Right,
neighborhood
so
there and around elsewhere that could.
Right, and they could have an input,
Yeah.
some type of input in there.
Yeah,
So that was my thing, because I even say to those that vote, we see you when it's time to vote. After that, we don't see you. But fortunately, I have been able to, we're friendly with some of the people that have voted. That's why I know about Pete Toner and, the people that he's.
okay. Anybody else?
That wasn't actually my comment.
Oh, it wasn't, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I was just thought of that when we were
I'm
speaking
sorry.
as a solution.
That is,
Oh, yeah.
Possible solution. But no, I was just wanted to comment, to say thank you for this committee or this body being here. I'm a small business owner, I'm a farmer, I own a farm to table grocery, and, flooding and the opposite of that, drought, really affects our food, and so I'm a climate organizer, and I also live in an area of town where a time or two I've been unable to get home. I've also been trapped in my car on Cherry Street while I watch the water get up to knee level in a matter of a few
On
very
Cherry
few
Street.
minutes. So I am grateful for this, and I hope that in everything that we do, we can be preemptive rather than, after the fact. I hope that we are really taking the long view when we make decisions about things. I think we should really take into account natural and passive ways to mitigate water and the effects of that. And I agree that I do think development is a problem, although I do understand that sometimes when you develop, you can help with drainage and help with runoff and things like that. So, I'm just grateful that this is on everyone's mind, and I hope that we can be really proactive, because it is really only going to get worse exponentially. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Okay, so cancel that, okay. Anybody else have a comment? Okay, so we're gonna,
I just wanted to say, I didn't realize that everybody was given their report.
no, it's just, it,
But I haven't heard.
yeah,
one
oh,
person out.
well, it wasn't necessary that it be writing, but thank you. Bill, did you want to start?
Sure, and I did not write anything down. I researched a number of FEMA possible grant programs. Some, it doesn't appear that would help with what we're doing, like the public assistance program is after a disaster. But the hazard mitigation grant program and the FEMA flood mitigation assistance grant program, and they're kind of the same. Flooding comes under, it's a type of hazard mitigation. It really looks like a possibility. We as the city of Newcastle would be a sub-applicant. The applicant would be the state of Delaware. So it really comes under DEMA, who receives funds from FEMA. So FEMA actually would do the application, but they can have a number of sub-applications. I have a call into our Newcastle County person, and he was out last week, and he has not called me back this week. But I will follow up with him and find out timing and I mean, it's got a lot of criteria, and I'm assuming we would meet all of it, although as Dave Athey has said many times, we need a cost benefit analysis, developed per FEMA standards. And I'm sure Dave and Kevin would know, what that means, but he has said several times, so we need to do a cost benefit before we even decide is 10.5 feet the correct height for the bikes and the gap issues. But it looks like it can cover, these grants can cover planning, engineering, building, etc. But I'm sure there's a lot of criteria. And we just need to, talk to someone. And
Would it
I
be
will
100%
follow up.
or would you have? to-
No, it's typically 75-25.
Mhm.
75 federal, 25 non-federal.
Okay, so that might be like Denrick or somebody could put in the rest of it, or do you not know? Yeah, okay. Tish, you got anything?
Yeah, well, I did send mine out, and they were under DENREC. And I really didn't find much. Community Environmental Project Fund provides money to support the restoration of environment in communities that are damaged by environmental pollution. So not really what we're talking about. Another one is the Environmental Finance Office, which administers the Delaware Water Pollution Control Revolving Fund, which is nice that it's a revolving fund, so they get funded yearly, I guess. But it doesn't really seem to apply because it deals with water quality projects. So maybe a bit of a stretch, maybe, but I don't think so. And then the last one, sorry, I didn't have a printer, so DENREC's Division of Climate, Coastal and Energy. No, that's not it. Sorry.
Actually, in the packet, there's your report that I had.
Yeah, well, I've got it in front of me
Okay.
too. I'm just, there was another one. I thought. But nothing did I find that really looked like it would fit for us. But the information's in your packet.
Mike, you got something?
Yeah, I did the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and I didn't realize it's not a federal agency. And it's private, nonprofit, tax exempt. They receive funds from the government, and they then manage those funds through grants. However, it's at least a 1-to-1 match for
It is.
everything,
Oh,
at least. In some cases, 2-to-1.
oh,
Yeah,
so they're the people that fill in rather than, number one. Okay.
yeah. And it can't be government funds that are matching. They have 3 programs, which are the Emergency Coastal Resilience Fund, Resilient Communities Program, and National Coastal Resilience Fund. That all apply to sea level rise specifically. And they have 2 that I saw that were more for habitat and restoration of wildlife habitat, Delaware River Program, and the 5-star Urban Water Restoration Program. Their annual applications, and they get reviewed.
Did you say the matching cannot be coming from the government, federal government? Is that right?
Yeah, has to be private,
Ooh,
private funds, not public. Yeah, I was kind of surprised that there wasn't more for sea level rise.
yeah. Well, I assigned myself, lucky for me, the Department of Agriculture. You wouldn't think that would be a big one, but it turned out to be really amazing. They have this watershed protection a program, and I spoke to a woman there named Ann Baldwin, who was on the website for our local contact for the Department of Agriculture. Now there, but also the organization within that is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And she said, she told me, now, I'm not gonna get too excited because, you know, these things can fall through, but I wish David Athy were here, so he would tell me if they've fallen through in the past, but she said that I told her our whole story, and she told me that we meet, so far, her criteria, the project would meet at least one of the purposes, and that would be flood control. The project has a benefit that is more than one landowner, and it would be, and we can get the council to be the sponsor. You have to have a governmental agency to be the sponsor of it. She also says that of particular interest to the NRCS is the Delaware River Basin. So, and here's the real beauty of it. It's 100% that they do for all of the planning and, engineering and all that. They pay 100% of it. And if they come up with a project that can be approved, they pay up to 100% of the project costs. So now it looks like if you've got more than 5 million, you have to get a congressional approval of it. But, we have two fairly substantial senators, so I'm thinking that might not be that hard. The thing is, all you have to do is request somebody come in and tell you from the NRCS whether or not I told her we were looking to protect our city. And she said, just request somebody come in and take a look at it and see if you were eligible and if the project would be feasible. And if it would be, then they would start the engineering project to determine exactly what would need to be done. Now, all along this, we're not making any decisions about what's going to be done or anything like that. It's just, the engineering done, which is, again, you've been talking about this. What do we need to do next? What do we need to do next? And I think an engineering, which tells us what exactly would be involved and how, how we could do it, how we could protect the city would be tremendous, especially if it were 100% paid for. So all we need to do, I talked to Ms. Souter about this. I saw her the other day. She said that we should write a letter to the council, this Newcastle Council, and ask them to request that somebody from the Department of Agriculture's watershed program come in and talk to the city. So that's what I propose that we do, is we send a letter to the council telling them this is what they should do, just send a letter. And I've got an address, Casey Taylor, State Conservationist of the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service in Dover, Delaware. So it's just a matter of sending a letter. Like I said, it's not, we don't make any commitment or anything like that. It's just to the point where, there's a discussion going. And as I said, the beauty of it is they pay 100% of the engineering to do it. So, so that's what I propose that we do. So anyway,
Do they do the engineering?
they either do it or they contract it out to a company that does it for them. Yes, yes, we don't have to do the engineering. They do the engineering once they've determined that it's feasible and we're eligible. And so, which worth to try to see if we are and to see if it is, right? I think.
It's paid for through the grant.
Pardon me?
It's paid for through the grant.
Yeah, yes, it
Or the
is.
grant.
It's all done. They pay for everything up until the project. And even in some cases, they pay for the project 100%.
So how much control does that give us? Us as the
We
city of
have the
Newcastle?
control of to say a yes or no. There's no, as a matter of fact, the city has to be involved in every step according to this, or else they will stop. They won't do it anymore because they say, well, we have to have input and approval from the area, the people in the area. or else we're not going to do it. And they make a big deal about that, that it's always constantly input from the, are you concerned about loss of control?
Well, so I was just trying to understand the relationship, Kevin Donnelly and the Conservation District. I mean, they're engineers.
I asked her that. I said, do you work with Kevin Donnelly? And she says, yes, we do.
Right.
So,
There was similar information from on the Fish and Wildlife Foundation, they gathered, was that the grant pays for the planning, the engineering, but that's all to us, the city, to scope it out and then hire the professionals. And they pay for it. I don't think you lose any control.
Okay,
That's
no,
not what I
that's why I
gathered
was
from
trying to
the
understand from Alice if they were providing their own engineers or if they were.
No, what I read, you hire.
yeah, they hire a company to do it. But again, we're all along the way, the council can say yes or no, or, stop, or that's not the firm we want, or whatever, because it always has to have the input of the council and the people of the city.
It certainly seems worth pursuing.
I'm sorry?
It seems worth
Yeah,
pursuing.
I think so, if there's something we could, and we could, even though we've got this, David Athy said, well, this isn't really engineering, this is just sort of surface looking at it. And that would be real engineering to determine what would be involved in everything. So I think it's worth, I think, pursuing. So if everybody's agreeable, I'm gonna put under our names a letter to the council. I'll send it to everybody. And you can tell me if it's okay to tell the council what I just said and to say, if you want to, you can write to this lady, to this Ms. Taylor, and see what comes of it. Is that agreeable to everybody?
So can I just add to that?
Yeah.
So looking at the resolution, this task force has to submit a 6-month written report to council. So I think that should go into that 6-month written report.
But that's in 2 months,
And,
so that's the only thing I was thinking, that we're even 3 months.
Right, but I also think it allows us to do more research, to get more like understanding on what the priority is in reference to what we want to fix first, whether it be a dike, a certain dike, or what, because it's all going to boil down to money, being able to get money and how much money. So if we can go, so if we have a plan and say, we want to go after, we want to fix this dike first. And this is the reason why we want to fix this dike first. And it comes in at this cost. It would be easier to fix a dike at a cheaper cost versus going at a higher cost for something else.
I kind of disagree too, because to me, this is the point where we can, if they come in and they look at it and they say it's feasible, let's say it's eligible, feasible, whatever.
Yep.
Then we have a better idea of what we can and can't do, because we'll know, if we can do the engineering for nothing. And if they really can say to us, well, this is something that we would pursue or whatever, and maybe they'll come to a different conclusion than we have, but at least we'll have that input. And it seems to me like this is, she said, Ann Baldwin, who I spoke to there, said this is at least a 2-year project. So I think that there's no reason to put it off, to just ask them to come over and take a look. That's what I would do. I would do it now. And then, yes, we have to do that interim report, but
Yeah, my only thought is, with her saying it's a 2-year project and we talk about 2 months, time-wise, that 2 months really isn't a lot of time. And I was just looking at it, just puts it all in one report versus kind of like two separate things. And I could be totally wrong, but I was just thinking, just to make things a little easier, more so, that it gets all incorporated in just one report, 2 council, and it's all at one time.
well, yeah, okay. I
But
disagree.
that's just
I
mine.
disagree because I think this is a separate thing. It's not, our report is gonna be report, where this will be a request, so that's, I disagree, but we disagree. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so we'll revisit that and.
All right, I was just wondering if someone should come and talk to the task force, so we all have a better understanding.
Well, that's why I wanted
before-
David Athay here or Kevin
Right.
Donnelly, but,
we didn't have-
I suppose we could invite Ann Baldwin, but, I guess I'm just so excited about this 100% thing, that, and I don't, does anybody else have anything that would do it for 100%? Does anybody have anything? That's why the idea that we could get it for free is just, it's exciting
Can't do
to.
that easy.
Yeah,
Alice,
I
come
know,
on.
that's why I'm a little, I'm afraid, I'm ready to be told we're not eligible or it's not feasible or something like that, but at least I like to ask the question. Yeah.
As a task force created by the city, do we have to wait the Alice to the? go to
Yes.
The city, or can she go
This-
to this meeting?
No, I think the city council would have to do a resolution or something. There has to be, it has to be sponsored by a government entity. And
I
we're,
think for the city to make a formal request, this council would have to do it, but I don't know if she would come and speak to this group informally to explain to you more about the process. I have no idea if she would do that without there being a formal request. from the city.
yeah, she might not want to do that.
And ask.
Although she spoke to me pretty freely, but she also said that she's not making any commitments or anything like that, so plus she's not, the woman I spoke to has, I think it's her boss that we would have to do the request to. Now, I was hoping that Kevin Donnelly would be here and we could ask him if there's some fly in the ointment that I'm not seeing yet, where there's, or like, I didn't even think about loss of control, to be perfectly honest. I was just thinking,
I guess you could ask
Engineering.
him before you sent your letter to,
pardon me?
you could ask Kevin and or David prior to sending your request to council,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
ask for their input. Since they
David,
weren't able to be
yeah.
here tonight.
David said, you won't be here next week either. I mean, next month, will you? Tish? If we change the meeting to the 4th week, would you be able to come?
Well, I should be here in July.
Oh, I thought it was
I
July.
can't be here in August,
Oh,
and thus neither
okay,
can the other new member.
all right, okay. Rick,
Well, NOAA websites I visited with NOAA, they were fairly extensive and most of them dealt with resilience programs, what I would call soft structures such as beach grass and soil erosion, that type of thing. I did find several sites that did offer funding for hard structures such as a berm or a seawall, and I concentrated more on those. And I've listed them here, and like I said, they're fairly extensive. And you would have to go, to the site and approach NOAA. I did find, as I was going through my research, Senator Carper, chair of the Senate Environment and Public Works. And I put a brief insert here, that he's floating a bill that would elevate coastal restoration, the primary mission of the Army Engineer Corps, and promote nature-based coastal resilience projects. Again, kind of soft structures. And then I had found an article that I think it was the Delaware Geological Survey produced a report and was talking about more hard structures, seawalls, berms, and that type of thing. I was a little concerned when I read this because DENREC took issue with the report. And like I mentioned to you, I was a little concerned about DENREC and the goals of the city being that they're on the same page. In other words, if we proceed with funding for say, a seawall or a berm, that there's no issue with DNREC. And I was going to suggest that perhaps we may want to approach DNREC and see, do they have a position on building structures?
Right, well, actually, I spoke to David Athy, well, I responded when I found out he was not gonna be here today, and we're looking for somebody at DNREC who could give us their take on it. And Kevin Donnelly suggested a fellow named Bob Scarborough. So I'm gonna try to get him, if that's okay with everybody, to get to the meeting, come to the meeting next month. Mr. Scarborough of DNREC, and he could tell us if there's, because I was concerned too, because you have it, we all just, let's say we decide we have a firm or something like that, and we find out that DNREC's position is, you can't do that because if you're setting coastal, the environment or the animals or fish or whatever. We'd like to know that before we go through all of that, right? So, yeah, so I was gonna invite him to come to the next meeting, and like I said, if that's okay with everybody, I'll try to, hopefully he'll be able to, I don't know, I'll let you know, but, anyway.
And then I'm familiar with Delaware City and several people down there, and I think their seawall has done a fantastic job of preventing the city there from flooding. And they produced several years ago a fantastic document, which I think was used as a proposal for funding. And I talked to the mayor, and it didn't, in the article itself, it didn't say who they approached. So I talked to the mayor and I said, well, where did your funding come? Because obviously the city was flooding in these major storms that were coming up the bay. And he thought that after a storm, that FEMA provided the funds after the fact to protect Delaware City. And that's how they got the seawall in place. And again, that was an excellent presentation. I think that was put together by the Delaware Geological Survey with assistance from the University of Delaware.
We have both been trying to get the information from Delaware City, and it's surprising to me how few people know how that came down, because I talked to Dick Cathcart, who was the city manager, prior to Mr., I think it's Baylor, who's David Baylor there now. And he said it was before my time. Well, that was like 2014. Was it before 2014 they built that?
I believe it was.
The
Yeah.
seawall was built in the 1980s.
Well, that was the original one, but it was the extension, no.
Nah, it was.
Oh, really?
According to
Oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Then we know we know. Okay.
Original one, yes.
The organization memory is very spotty. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, Tim, do you have some?
So I don't have anything, good information in reference to, funding. I had the coastal, funds as well as, the Department of Interior. But Mike touched a lot on the coastal, grants that are out there, and Rick just touched on some. So I'm still trying to figure out the Department of Interior, on how far to take it in order to, like, what qualifies, what and what doesn't qualify. I still have questions and all for that. Also, the Rescue Act, the rescue funds.
Right.
So that's like a hot ticket item, right? So everybody's just like flocking to it. So I'm waiting on some questions to make sure that certain things are covered, in order to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's a lot of infrastructure funds and things like that around now. That's why I thought maybe we should jump on it. But you know, maybe we should wait till next month where we can bring maybe Kevin Donnelly in and Mr. Scarborough and David. David will not be here next month either because he's on vacation, I guess, during the, but so maybe we could table that for this month. Is that what everybody would think, or would you? I mean, I wanted to read the letter yesterday. I got so excited about it, but maybe we should do a little bit more.
I'd like to understand more about how all these agencies fit together, because I know like the Conservation District gets some funding from DEMRAC. And I just want to make sure that we're,
Yeah, right. The
Yeah.
Conservation District is a state organization, whereas the Natural Resources Conservation Service is federal. But she did say that she works with Kevin, so it's probably better to get Kevin's take on it before we do anything. So hopefully Kevin can make it next month. I didn't, he couldn't make it this month, but that doesn't mean he's gonna be able to make it next month, but hopefully he can. And the other thing about this watershed is, as he said last month, Conservation District can actually help homeowners within the city with flooding. Like, who was it talking, you were talking about the flooding in your neighborhood on Cherry Street, right? And Nancy Koenig was here last month talking about her flooding, that kind of thing. That is also, I asked her specifically about that. And she said that they could also have a project to take care of that flooding as well, because we are in the watershed. A lot of that storm water is coming down from higher ground in Newcastle County. And something else I was gonna say, but I forget it. Anyway, yeah, so that's a possibility. And I think, and Kevin said that if he could get funding, that the Conservation District can also look into that as well. So, yeah, so I thought this was too good to be true, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, okay, so if anybody who has not had, just kind of write up something, just send it to me so I can put it within my file. That'd be great. I have something I have something for you and Rick and Tish. Okay. Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson's assignments, do you?
I started to look at it. It didn't look very promising,
Okay.
and I didn't have a whole lot of time to look into it. So, and it looked like all loans. And I don't know that the city is going to want to take out a loan for that. It doesn't, not if you can get, grant money. So I thought that would be like a secondary thing.
Right.
So I did start to look at it, but I haven't done, in depth, but I will look at it again just to be sure that we're not missing something. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, what's our next on our agenda item here? Does anybody have anything beyond the funding that they wanted to talk about from the task force members?
I was interested in the status of the studies, but you didn't happen to ask about.
No, are you talking about the one that's going to be
Well,
done?
the elevations, because as of last meeting, end of June, the basement crawl spaces, end of July, and I was just wondering if that was true.
We
Yeah.
haven't been contacted.
I actually had an individual come by today and measure my basement
Oh,
height.
because I don't think anyone's come to our house.
And
Where ours?
I think we were probably last on his list.
You mean the people in the Strand, you mean?
Yeah.
People in the- yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I still don't understand why you would have to do that study if more building doesn't change the level of the Delaware. Remember, I said to David, what about when you build all that stuff at the river's edge, the new development, how would that affect everything? And he said, not very much.
Yeah.
So the question is, why would you do this study if what you build doesn't really affect anything very much? I don't get that. I don't know, there's some kind of dichotomy.
I think I think you need to know that to do a cost benefit analysis, like how many existing structures would flood.
Plus, it's really useful for the individual homeowners to know.
Oh, I
if
agree.
there's
I'm not
anything-
saying don't do it, but I'm just saying, but if he said, if, doesn't matter what you build along the river's gonna be the river.
But we're already built. And so they need to understand.
Yeah, but what about new development, like the one by the,
Well,
on
that-
the
well,
little Lucan
No, I
Street?
I was talking about it.
Yeah, I know.
Existing.
I know, but still,
So I think these studies were more to understand the existing
Absolutely.
structures.
oh, I know why they were, it's just my own comment there. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to add? What about, so the agenda for next meeting? Does anybody have any suggestions beyond, like I said, I'm trying to get Bob Scarborough to come in from Denrec. And also hopefully Kevin Donnelly will be here to talk about the Department of Agriculture monies and then how he's worked with them. I know he's, like I said, they said that Ann Baldwin said she works with Kevin Donnelly quite a bit, so he would give us, I think he would give us a better insight. I will see if Ann can come in or if somebody from her department can come in too, get it right from the
I mean,
the source.
I would prefer Ann to come in, since you were
Come to
talking
us.
with her and she provided all this information. And all, because
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll be able to, nothing against Kevin, but I'm sure she'll be able to answer more specific, detailed questions, go in,
I
you know,
agree,
go in depth
I agree.
versus.
We'll see if she can make
Kevin.
it. Yeah, we'll see if she can make it. That would be great if she could.
Mhm.
But in any case, Kevin can talk about some other things as well, so. And I said to David Athy, who can we talk to about what would be involved in putting a berm, like technically, archaeologically, and all of that? And he said Kevin Donnelly would be the person too. So, and then Kevin suggested Bob Scarborough would also be very, because he works at Denrec, so anyway. So hopefully they'll all come in. And, does anybody have anything else that?
So something that I would like to do, and I don't know if other committee members would be to walk the gap with them, just like we had Jeff show us the dikes, and I got a lot of understanding out of actually seeing the dikes and what connected, and understanding that they don't all connect to each other, that, it's then the high ground in some of the industrial parks. I walk the gap, our city gap, between the dikes a lot, and I look at it and I go, well, how would you connect like this berm down and I would just
I
like.
totally
to-
agree with you, Gail, because, and also,
With-
how
with
high
somebody.
would 10.5 feet
With,
be?
with maybe
from the sea
David
level.
and Kevin, right,
I think
and that-
Kevin has already done something
he
close
had,
to
he's
that, right?
walked,
Yeah,
and he looked at, like arc lighthouses at some point. But, then when you look at connecting it to Delaware Street and you have the river comes in, and I would just be interested in their
totally agree with you.
opinions, just kind of the general layout, would it be all along the river or would it be up closer to the houses?
Gail, have you ever spoken with anyone at the Delaware Historical Society concerning the gap there in front of the Reed House?
They're very interested in doing something, yes,
They're very
Yeah,
interested.
yes.
Great.
In front of what?
Brenton-
The Reed House?
The Reed House, yeah, they own the property across the street from the Reed House. And Brenton Grom, who is the director of the Reed House for the Delaware Historical Society, is very interested in protecting that property.
Is the person who didn't want the berm on their property still living there? You don't have to tell me who it is. but just-
I would say yes.
Okay. all right. Because this will, if we put a berm, if the berm is built through the auspices of the Department of Agriculture, going to have to get easements, and it's not going to be that easy unless the city is going to have to, be behind the easements if we want to do it at all.
So, and apparently there are different kinds of easements, so, I think from talking to Kevin, you can get a building easement and then a maintenance easement and not actually have to own the property, but you'd have to get people to agree.
Right, right. Yeah, not an easement that everybody can just go and walk
Right,
around or.
not to
anything, yeah.
build like a walkway and a.
Right, yeah. Mhm.
There's also eminent domain.
Eminent domain is very specific and very hard. So I don't think eminent domain is in the possibility. but
Yeah,
more like-
resort for someone who doesn't want to cooperate, yes.
Well, that's, you could do an easement. You know, you don't have to cooperate with an easement any more than you do with eminent domain, I don't think, right?
You need to get permission. Usually.
Yeah. Well, with the threat of eminent domain, I mean, which
I know,
would be
I
okay, would be okay with the easement, anyway.
You don't have to agree to an easement.
Yeah. So, do people have to agree to an easement?
The owners.
It's written in the deed.
Hmm?
That is written into the deed.
Yeah, right. We need to be the one person that prevented the city from surviving a flood, would you? I would, especially if it's, out there, away from your property, but anyway. Does anybody else have any other subjects they wanted to talk about? Okay, comments from about our discussion, comments from the audience, audience. Phil,
Yeah,
okay.
Phil Gross, 1301 13th Street. Thank you, Gail, for, kind of seeing the whole picture, or at least more of the picture. I understand the dikes, I understand the strand, but you've got to, in your final letter or, decision on what you recommend as a council or committee, what's good for the whole city. And I love, and it's been working well in other cities and towns, the soft structures. And if that's an inexpensive beginning to start shoring up the Route 9 area, I wouldn't discount that and say, well, if we don't do seawalls, nothing's gonna work. No, you really got to open up to the other alternatives. The other thing is, I like the idea of full funding for studies and engineering, but city council in their budget has $10,000 that they want to spend on a municipal campus. I don't see why fixing up the flooding issues before we look at spending $10 million on a municipal campus. Council, you guys in your letter in a couple months should petition council to give you 10 grand so that you're not reliant on the one study that's 100%. If that gets shot down, at least you have other options that you can subsidize the 25% or whatever the percentage is and continue on. I think that's important because the twin spans in that area by right here is flooding. People think it's higher than like where Three Countries is. I live off Moore, and there's been times I could not get to Moore on 9. So it's a broad picture. So I thank you for doing what you're doing and keep up the good work, but look at the whole picture and then narrow specific areas.
Rick, what are the soft structures that you were talking about? What would they be?
What I'm referring to is like beach grass for dunes. I mean, that works well down at Cape Hatteras where there is an existing dune. Plant beach grass to keep the dune there. You plant vegetation along the shoreline to stop soil erosion, but that doesn't stop 4 feet of water from coming inland. So
Plus, they have the dune underneath it, you know what I mean? Like.
it's an established.
Yeah, which is like a version of the berm, yes, right? Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Yeah,
Oh, yes, speaking of what Rick was talking about.
Dorsey, you wanna give your name and address?
Dorsey Fisk, 153rd Street. I remember years
Oh,
ago.
sorry. That was from Phil's time, sorry.
Oh, and it was storms and he hit it and we were supposed to get it. Thank God he didn't, but he did. And then there were a lot, I may have said something about this last meeting, but there were a lot of coastal engineers who were talking about different possibilities that could be used in toto So in other words, one thing, one seawall may not be the complete solution. As Rick was saying there, you don't want erosion. So anything that will stop erosion, even if there is some flooding. If you get erosion, then the next time the water is going to be even higher. So I think it can be very useful.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all agreed with that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's thinking
Yeah.
it's one thing fixes everything.
Yes.
Skylar Borton, 42 East Fourth Street. I just wanted to be sure I was clear who it was who said that any proposed new development wouldn't particularly affect the river.
David Athy, I asked him last week, I said, well, what if, should we be concerned about the development at the river's edge, or whatever that's called down there? Because this was totally, just me asking, okay, this is not something the task force. Because I wondered if that would possibly affect flooding in the rest of the city, or even there, and he said that it wouldn't be much, and that it would, pretty much the river does what it wants to do. He's the city engineer. And this is the same thing I've heard from Jeff Bergstrom about apartments like the Garrison and things like that, yes, you're covering some ground, but it's not enough to make a difference.
Are they admitting that the Garrison is cracking and sinking?
I know nothing about that. I'm just repeating what David.
Well, our neighbors, we have lovely new neighbors because they couldn't get out of the Garrison fast enough, but okay.
And if you'd like pictures, I've got pictures.
No, we don't have anything to do with that. No, we don't want to get involved in that. No.
Well, no, but we're talking about the people that were giving you the input.
I mean, I'm very concerned to hear that that's their attitude. And we look forward to changing those attitudes because let's look at Ellicott City, for example. In Maryland, it's a charming historic village. And in 2018, they had 1,000-year flood. And they said, oh God, we got through it. And for the next 1,000 years, we didn't have to worry about it. And then the next year they had another 1,000-year flood. And so they decided to kind of look into it. And what they discovered was that development surrounding the historic area had put a huge influence on the course of waters during storms running through the town. And I'll tell you, if you really have seen a lot of good movies and want some real entertainment, it's really worth looking at some of the videos of those floods because
Well, I think that we shouldn't even discuss it unless David is here, because he's the one who said that. And I can't repeat it or support it or deny it or anything like that.
and I'm not trying to be belligerent.
I know you're not. No, I understand. I understand. Anybody else have anything they wanted to say? Yeah.
I would just like to say briefly, I mean, I just feel like it is kind of common sense that anytime you cover a surface that is meant to be naturally, growing, that not only are you causing more flooding, but you're disrupting ecosystems. And I mean, yeah, you can maybe put pipes underneath to divert the water and whatnot, but, Mother Nature works pretty well as it is. So I'm really glad to hear about these, soft solutions. I wanted to say that I'm assuming, I feel dumb even saying this, but you guys definitely must know about the flooding where, Perry cut off and
Yes.
Six. You must know how
Yes.
bad that is.
Yes.
And then the last thing I was gonna say is I'm hoping that you guys are aware of this SB 305 that just got shot down by our governor, who put pressure on Representative Heffernan to kill a bill that would really put us on the map as a progressive state dealing with the root issue of what we're here about, which is climate crisis. And we have an opportunity over the next couple of days to call our representative and our governor and demand that this bill at least be brought to vote. Because, climate crisis is gonna make all of this work. So if we can address that, it's just like, you don't, when you have something leaking or whatever, you fix the problem. You don't just keep scooping it out. So if any of you have relationships with anyone that are, just call either Franklin Cook or Mimi Brown and make sure that they know that we want this vote, SB 305, to go to vote. And if you could please do that ASAP, that would be really great.
The number again?
It's Senate Bill 305.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And having, as a Delawarean, or native Delawarean who's been away and recently returned, I mean, I remember Russ Peterson as a governor, and so it's a little disappointing to find that he asked, wanted to have this bill not considered, and then also as far as Delaware City is concerned, in this trailer park that they're looking to put on wetlands, it seems, I gather, and this is hearsay, of course, but that it was the governor who leaned on DENREC to leave it alone and not pursue, first of all, questioning what seems to have been a rather curious zoning change and transfer of ownership, although of course no one's really, it's not being officially looked at. And then putting a trailer park on in various flood areas, not all flood area, but it is wetlands, and it is, as you say, they're natural environments that should be preserved.
Well, Garvin says it's not wetlands, but it is wetlands, I think, and there were 4 EPA complaints filed within the past week and a half, and I've been told that it might be being scrapped.
Nope. Sean's making sure it goes through.
So we'll just have to see, that's a whole another.
Okay, yeah, it's not really under, our purview, thank God, I didn't have to worry about that. Yes,
And if I may add to this, I find it very odd that it would be useful to hear what David Atlee has to say about what he has told you all, because I have always heard that you have to have absorption of rain and into the earth. And if it runs off, then you get flooding, and that's what we've been having in this town. So I don't understand why it doesn't matter.
I'm so sorry I mentioned that, because the truth is, I know nothing about it. And David is the one who would be able to tell you what's going on
Well,
there.
perhaps
It
you
really
could have
doesn't.
it at the
Huh?
next meeting. Perhaps you could have it at the next meeting.
Well, David is typically here. He would be here if he weren't ill. Next
Mm.
month, he said he's on vacation during our meeting, so he will not be here next month.
We could Zoom it.
Yeah, we could.
But I'll invite Jeff Bergstrom too, because he told me a similar thing, but anyway. I don't want this to be, evolve into something about that particular subject.
No, but it is important.
It is, it's obviously important, yeah.
Real quick, I'm so sorry, can I say one more thing? I think knowledge is power, and I think unless calling the Department of Ag and starting that ball rolling by asking the city council to address it and asking them to do so in a timely manner, unless that's prohibiting us working with any other body, I think we should totally do that. We are in an emergency. There is no time to waste. So I would do that ASAP if I were in charge. Unless it was gonna make me not be able to get something else. And maybe we need to find that out, but there's no time to waste.
What does everybody think about that? I mean, I think we could do 1 month, right, to talk to people next month. I'm not
I
saying,
just like to understand more.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
understand it a
I-
little more.
I agree.
I hear you.
That it's
I'm just
important.
putting in my 2 cents.
Yeah, right. But I think 1 month, we can take that time to find out more. And hopefully we'll find out anything we don't like, but if we do, then it's better to know.
And I
So-
think what we're hearing confirms what we talked about a meeting or so ago, that while this is called the Sea Level Rise Committee, we recognize that flooding is our issue. Not all of the flooding comes from the river. We've also got this massive amount of water that is impacting us because I think we covered up too much land.
It also might have something to do with sea level rise, though, because it's maybe not draining as much as it would have had the
I
river not.
think it's
rip-
both.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it's both. And we talked about the fact that, we're gonna have to, in some way, address both of those issues.
Right.
Because it's not gonna help us to build up over here by the river.
Yeah, and then
And
we'll put it
then
in
have
back
the
of it.
water come from the other side.
Right, Yeah.
We've got to address it as a whole.
I agree totally.
And I just like, being detailed,
Oops, sorry.
say that this, as I'm piggybacking I'm sorry, Karen, I'm glad for this meeting. I think it's given me a lot of insight of what can go on, what could go on. And I felt a little of it, not personally, but my church, I think I may have mentioned when they had Hurricane Ida and we still, FEMA and DEMA still has not helped us. We're still trying to, and I have pictures of the water. Now, I'm, 5'7.5" in my, our dining hall downstairs. When I went down, if I stood up, I was probably up the top, but that's how high the water rose, and it destroyed everything down there. And I tell you, it'll be a year in September. So listening to everything that we're proactive trying to do, I mean, we've been there for 66 years. And this is the first time ever, but we've had water come up, but we've had good pumps down here, the pumps that keep the water out when it comes in so far, but it wasn't able to do anything here. It was just devastating. And just to think, as we're sitting here talking about where the water is gonna come from, we had no idea. But I figured the water came from that Brandywine Creek over that bridge, and as you know, water runs down, and it just destroyed it. Some people not even back in their home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
People rescue my boat
Oh,
in
yeah.
Northeast and Riverside.
Well, thank
So
you.
I'm just saying that I know I don't want, I wouldn't want that to happen to any of us here, but I just having experienced that impact on our house of worship or church back in September. devastating.
Also, you know, one of the things that I learned, because I've been on the task force, is that our efforts as a city
Mhm.
to protect the homes here affects people's flood insurance rates.
Yeah.
So
So I don't even have any, I mean, because I didn't, and I tell you, to be honest, I didn't even think of flood insurance, you know, now you have your homeowners insurance, everything.
Right.
I did inquire after what occurred at the church, and the guy did give me some, because I'm with, my homeowners and car insurance is with, Liberty Mutual. I've been with them since the 90s. And, I think they quoted me $575 for the whole year. And, you know, you have to pay it up front each year. But somebody else told me to look into my homeowners and ask them, is there any kind of way you can get some insurance, and they tax so much on to your homeowner's insurance per month? I don't know if that,
yeah, that's another, yeah.
yeah, they don't do that, you gotta pay it up front.
I'm not sure what I'm paying up front. I'm with Allstate and carryover from having been covered in Washington. So they, from their perspective in DC, they say you damn well better get flood insurance, even though you're not in any of the.
Well, all the insurance is subsidized by FEMA, so I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference between one company and the other. I think it's mostly, you know, you get the rate from FEMA. But anyway,
We're having a conversation for residents about insurance. I mean, that's, it could be sort of an interim thing that each of us could take the initiative with. And
well, Jeff Bergstrom is really the expert on that.
okay.
And I do know that, you know, you do get a percentage off of your insurance if you've made certain efforts. And I think if we were to make even a larger effort, it probably would result in a larger discount. That's my assumption, but you know, assumptions too.
Are
But
you
anyway.
saying that we can, that I could speak with Jeff on that and that?
No, it has to do, well, yes, I mean,
Okay.
make sure that you're getting the discount, but it has to do with the city's efforts to
Oh,
protect
okay.
everybody. That would, you know, affect everybody's insurance rates.
So Alice, that might be an interesting topic for one of our meetings, just to
Yeah, I
understand
agree.
how the city is rated,
Right.
what goes into that.
Yeah,
And if, you know, if there are ways that we could get an even better rating. I think it's fairly complicated from what Jeff Bergstrom has said to do all the application, but we do have a rating that does give us a discount. I just don't understand all the things that go into it.
For flood.
Uh-huh. Yes.
okay, anything else? Then, so next week I'll try to get Bob Scarborough and Kevin Donnelly in here. And we will talk about more about, and also Ann Baldwin, I'll try to get her to come and see if we can get more information about the ag thing. And also more information about what would be the problems, if the concerns about putting up a berm or something like that in on the shoreline. Okay, so I guess we're adjourned then, okay?
Thank you all for figuring
Yeah,
out.
about the flood
Oh, thanks.
insurance. I wonder who would be a good person to talk to. Some insurance people.